On March 17, 1943, at Tirpitzufer, 76 to 78 in Berlin, the dossier crashed down onto the polished mahogany surface with enough impact to send coffee spilling from Admiral Wilhelm Canaris's delicate porcelain mug, soaking documents that could spell death if the Gestapo ever laid eyes on them. Unbelievable. The U.S. must be disseminating falsehoods via double agents. Gazing out from the expansive windows of Abwehr headquarters, Canaris spotted the Landwehr Canal, the very spot where Rosa Luxemburg's remains had been discarded 24 years prior. Serving as the head of Germany's military espionage service, he now gripped a document in his unsteady grasp that undermined not only Nazi misinformation, but the very arithmetic underpinning their path to triumph. Drawn from captured signals and dispatches by operatives embedded in Mexico City, the findings revealed that Ford Motor Company's Willow Run facility was churning out a single B-24 Liberator bomber each hour. This B-24 Liberator demanded 1.5 million distinct pieces, 450,000 rivets, and 30,000 individual elements pieced together into an 18-ton flying machine, emerging from the production line at a pace surpassing Germany's output of even a basic Kubelwagen troop carrier. Major Friedrich Wilhelm Heinz, rigid with salute in front of Canaris's workspace, had verified the data 3 times over. The figures held firm. Unbeknownst to either officer, this instant would spark the greatest espionage blunder of contemporary conflict: the persistent German failure to grasp, accept, or properly relay the immense scope of U.S. manufacturing prowess to the Nazi high command, sealing the Third Reich's fate via a catastrophic error in gauging numerical certainty. The unraveling of German assessments on American output had started 2 years before. Back in 1941, Luftwaffe General Karl Koller had delivered to Hermann Göring intelligence from Attaché General Friedrich von Something, stationed in Washington, indicating U.S. airplane manufacturing neared 2,000 units monthly. Göring had chuckled outright, insisting that Americans excelled merely at crafting appliances and shaving tools, not warplanes. "The Yanks are posturing," Göring assured Hitler during a meeting at the Wolfschanze on December 1941, just 4 days following Pearl Harbor. "Their democratic system renders them feeble. Their mixed-race populace ensures sloppiness. Their Jewish influence breeds dishonesty. No way can they deliver on their boasts." Come March 1943, espionage lines throughout the Americas were relaying details that shattered core tenets of Nazi ideology on race and commerce alike. These accounts originated from diverse channels: pro-German Mexican tycoons, Iberian envoys, neutral Swedish traders passing through Detroit, and even snagged correspondence from U.S. laborers to kin in safe nations. Everyone echoed the same inconceivable reality: Ford's Willow Run site by itself outpaced the total heavy bomber yield from every German aviation works. Oberstleutnant Nicholas Ritter, overseeing Abwehr's aerial reconnaissance branch under IV Luft, had devoted 3 weeks to scrutinizing the figures. Once a Luftwaffe aviator who resided in the States for a decade pre-war, Ritter grasped U.S. productive might more keenly than fellow Teutonic commanders. In the 1920s, his New York flat had faced the rising Chrysler Building. He had observed how Americans raised the planet's loftiest skyscraper in under 2 years, Ritter informed Canaris directly. Should these stats prove accurate, and I'm convinced they do, then the conflict is already decided against us. It's merely an issue of equations and duration now. The data arrived via twisted paths, each riskier than the previous. Georg Nicholas, managing Abwehr's key operation in Mexico City, had nurtured contacts within U.S. executives shuttling between Detroit and Mexico's petroleum zones. These individuals chatted freely about wonders they'd beheld, oblivious that their supper talks were being noted by Axis spies. On February 3, 1943, U.S. petroleum magnate Harold Morrison joined a gathering at the German-Mexican Trade Society in Mexico City. Loosened by a few tequilas, Morrison recounted his latest visit to Willow Run, courtesy of Ford's invitation to impress prospective backers with their prowess in meeting defense orders. "Folks," Morrison declared, not realizing Wolfgang Blau, a Teutonic operative masquerading as an Argentine hide trader, was committing each detail to memory. "The sight I took in beggars belief. That production belt stretches more than a mile. The structure is enormous enough to generate indoor clouds, complete with occasional showers. They've got 42,000 laborers on site, among them hordes of females, including black women, constructing humanity's most intricate invention. Morrison fished out a pen and started doodling on a serviette. The aircraft features dual payload compartments, each accommodating 4,000 pounds of munitions, plus 4 power plants, every one generating 100 horsepower. They fabricate it in segments, sub-assemblies, as Ford terms them, that merge together akin to streams joining an ocean. Components from the wings come in from one side, while fuselages approach from elsewhere, and tail units from yet another angle. These parts converge at exact spots along the assembly line. Blem had inquired, aiming to appear offhandedly curious. Yet, wouldn't this level of intricacy lead to constant malfunctions and holdups in output? Morrison chuckled in response. That was the view held by Consolidated Aircraft. They ridiculed Ford, insisting that assembling planes couldn't mimic car manufacturing. However, Ford dissected the bomber into 60,000 distinct procedures. Every employee repeats the identical function repeatedly. A lady who was preparing meals for her kids just yesterday is now fitting hydraulic tubing into the rear assembly. Training takes place in days rather than months. The most thorough insights probably flowed via Francisco Franco's Spain. Colonel José Hungría, the Spanish military attaché stationed in Washington, fostered strong ties with U.S. plane makers, all while covertly supplying data to Germany in return for vital tungsten deliveries essential to Spain's economy. In March 1943, Hungría joined a gathering at the Argentine embassy, where he encountered Charles Sorensen, Ford's output director and the mastermind behind Willow Run. Sorensen, under the impression he was chatting with an envoy from a non-aligned country potentially interested in post-war plane buys, opened up about the facility's prowess. Colonel Hungría had noted, oblivious that his remarks would reach Berlin in under 2 weeks. Upon my initial tour of the Consolidated San Diego facility back in 1940, they were constructing B-24s outside under the sun, with each varying from the previous one and demanding 180,000 labor hours per unit. I realized we had room for improvement. Hungría pushed for specifics, citing his expertise as an Army engineer. Sorensen, eager to boast of his success, complied. One evening in my San Diego lodging, I drafted the full manufacturing sequence. We'd construct bombers the way we do automobiles, not with crews clambering over a fixed plane, but by advancing the plane by fixed workers. Each employee handles designated duties on loop, reaching mastery via constant practice. The Spanish officer queried the personnel hurdles of this elaborate setup. We established a training academy that instructs 8,000 staff each week, Sorensen answered. Females make up 40% of our labor force. They excel in precision tasks with nimbler fingers for confined areas and greater endurance for monotonous jobs. We employ black workers on advanced equipment. We even have 16-year-old lads overseeing inventory distribution. The essence of democracy involves harnessing every possible talent. Via routes in Sweden, Argentina, Japan, and Turkey, German spies gathered steady accounts verifying Willow Run's output pace. Swedish technician Eric Lundberg toured the site in March 1943 and observed, "The operation runs with such streamlined precision that it challenges European comprehension." They deploy 1,600 custom machine tools, several tailored to just one function. The financial outlay is immense, possibly $200 million solely for equipment. Japanese officer Toshikazu Omi's encrypted dispatch to Tokyo, captured by German spies, offered separate corroboration. This one plant churns out more planes each month than Japan's whole air sector. By April 1943, German intelligence had compiled thorough information from 17 distinct outlets, validating the manufacturing volume. The figures were astonishing. Willow Run by itself was turning out 650 B-24s per month at its height, while total U.S. B-24 output surpassed some 400 monthly. Eager for solid on-the-ground facts, Canaris greenlit Operation Pistorius, deploying saboteurs into America by submarine. George John Dash, head of one of the two four-person squads, had resided in the U.S. for 2 decades prior to heading back to Germany in 1939. His confidential directives from Canaris directed him to collect details on plane manufacturing prior to any wrecking activities. In the pre-dawn of June 13, 1942, Dash's group came ashore at Amagansett, Long Island, disembarking from U-202 shortly past midnight. Soon after, distressed by the ramifications of his assignment and his prior knowledge of U.S. output, Dash turned himself in to the FBI. In questioning, Dash disclosed a detail that left his U.S. interrogators speechless. Canaris personally informed me that Berlin dismisses your output stats. They view Willow Run as mere hype. He sought images, staff tallies, dispatch logs, evidence to compel Goering to face the truth. FBI agent Charles Landman probed in disbelief. They doubt we're making a bomber hourly? Dash gave a wry, pained laugh. Agent Landman, I was raised here. I've witnessed your auto plants. I attempted to convince them that if Ford could assemble a vehicle every minute pre-war, they could absolutely manage a bomber hourly in wartime. They branded me a pessimist. On April 20, 1943, Hitler's 54th birthday, Canaris handed the dossier directly to Goering at Karenhall, the Reich Marshal's lavish retreat for hunts located north of B in Berlin. That gathering would etch itself into the annals of German espionage lore due to Goering's utter dismissal of the facts. Canaris arrived armed with snapshots, captured papers, and accounts from scores of informants. He laid them out on Goering's enormous oak desk, much like a gambler revealing a hand doomed to fail. Herr Reichsmarschall, Canaris started cautiously, we possess verification from 17 separate informants. The Ford Willow Run facility is churning out 1 B-24 Liberator per hour during maximum output. They've sustained this pace steadily from January onward. Goering, who tipped the scales at more than 280 pounds amid the conflict's later stages, lifted a photo depicting the production line vanishing into the horizon. Canaris, Goering sneered derisively, do you consider me an idiot? These are plainly wooden dummies, staged for morale-boosting tricks. The Yanks aim to convince us they're cranking planes like Frankfurters. That Willow Run site likely spits out no more than 50 bombers a month. Canaris retrieved another file, a seized shipping list from the Pennsylvania Railroad detailing aluminum deliveries. Herr Reichsmarschall, this single factory devours 16 million pounds of aluminum each month. That's surpassing our whole country's output for the period. Goering let out a biting chuckle. So where's all this aluminum coming from? They're black laborers, they're female riveters. Canaris, you've fallen for Yankee hype. 7 days afterward, Canaris found himself called to the Wolf's Lair to update Hitler in person. The session featured Generals Jodl and Keitel alongside propaganda chief Isef Goebbels. Hitler, poring over charts of the Eastern Front as the Wehrmacht geared up for Operation Citadel, the clash at Kursk, grew restless while Canaris delivered the briefing. Mein Führer, Canaris ventured, fully aware he gambled with his existence. Should the Americans fabricate 1,400 B-24s per month, matched by similar volumes of B-17s, alongside their pursuit planes and Britain's contributions, the skies over the Reich will overwhelm our air defenses before long. Hitler's retort fit his pattern. Admiral, the Yanks excel at flooding markets with basic items, cars, iceboxes, but a heavy bomber demands finesse, expertise, commitment. We needed 6 years to arm ourselves, yet they boast accomplishing it in just 16 months. Absurd. General Jodl scrutinized Canaris's data and ran some quick math. Even granting a fourth of these numbers holds water. The numbers are fabricated, Hitler cut in. The Americans joined the fight in December 1941. Erecting this wonder factory and hitting such yields in that span defies belief. Unbeknownst to the Nazi High Command, Canaris had secured moving pictures of Willow Run at work via U.S. spy links in Switzerland. The reel, ferried through Spanish embassy channels, captured 5 minutes of the line humming efficiently. Canaris and his aide Hans Oster screened it in a secure chamber at Abwehr Central. The lens followed the full mile of the setup. B-24s at various build phases glided by without pause. A diverse crew, males, females, African Americans, Caucasians, executed duties with clockwork accuracy. Timestamps in multiple frames verified the sequence. "My God," Oster murmured, "it's real." Canaris ignited the celluloid with his lighter, observing as flames consumed it. "We dare not reveal this. They'd brand it doctored or us as turncoats." By November 1943, German spies acquired overhead shots of Willow Run, snapped by a Spanish envoy. Experts pored over the prints for weeks. Their verdict: vast parking areas held roughly 12,000 vehicles, signaling round-the-clock shifts. Finished B-24s dotted the nearby airstrip, 47 units set for handover. The production floor peeked through roof windows, with planes positioned precisely per reports. Sidetracks brimmed with loaded rail cars hauling supplies. Hedman Vernard noted, "The images back up agent reports, output levels check out, urge prompt overhaul of battle plans." When Goering viewed the photos, he brushed them off as slick U.S. photo tricks, likely with miniatures. Dr. Albert Speer, Hitler's munitions overseer and the sole Nazi figure grasping true factory dynamics, quietly accessed the U.S. intel. His journal note from May 15, 1943, unearthed post-war, bared his hopelessness. "If Willow Run stats ring even halfway true, we're staring at obliteration, not mere loss. They forge more planes in 30 days than our nation does in 365. Yet, voicing this seals my fate." Dr. Otto Ohlendorf, SD domestic chief and an economist by trade, dissected U.S. financial records. His December 1943 memo to Himmler painted a grim picture. Ford Motor Company's 1941 civilian tally reached 1.1 million autos. They've redirected that muscle to bombers at present clips. Come June 1944, the Yanks will have assembled sufficient B-24s. In a mere 4 seconds, the output from just one B-24 Liberator could match the full tonnage of bombs dropped on London by the Germans in all of 1940 every day. During Christmas Eve of 1943, Canaris obtained reports detailing U.S. manufacturing forecasts for the following year. B-24 Liberators, 18,000, B-17 Flying Fortresses, 12,000, B-29 Superfortresses, 1,000, fighter planes, 40,000, grand total, 86,000 aircraft. When Hitler reviewed these statistics, his reaction was swift and dismissive. The Americans boast they'll manufacture more planes in 1944 than every country has ever built throughout history. It's ridiculous. Come February 1944, Canaris lost his post, accused of pessimism and betrayal. His successor, Walter Schellenberg, a steadfast Nazi devotee, avoided any challenge to Hitler or Goering. Yet facts persisted, impossible to dismiss indefinitely. On February 20, 1944, during Operation Argument, known as Big Week, the U.S. 8th Air Force unleashed more than 1,000 heavy bombers on targets in German aviation facilities. Over those 6 days, their payload exceeded the Luftwaffe's entire output during the Blitz against Britain. Luftwaffe ace Adolf Galland informed Goering, "Herr Reichsmarschall, I've observed more than 800 bombers flying together in one group. These machines exist, and their explosives are genuine." By June 6, 1944, over 11,000 Allied planes dominated the skies above France. The Luftwaffe managed to deploy under 300 fighters to counter them. Field Marshal Hugo Sperle transmitted an urgent alert to Berlin. "Enemy air dominance is total. Our assessments proved right. Deception came not from the Americans, but from our own delusions." By April 1944, Willow Run reached its maximum output pace. That period, staff in dual 9-hour rotations across 6-day weeks assembled 453 aircraft within 468 hours, achieving one complete B-24 Liberator every 63 minutes. The facility housed 4,331 employees, among them 11,000 women, 26% of the total, 3,800 African Americans, 9%, and 1,200 workers with disabilities, 3%. Such a workforce composition would have utterly demolished Nazi doctrines on race. Those deemed inferior groups and marginalized individuals surpassed the so-called Aryan superiors by vast margins. Post-war, former German spies disclosed the extent of their oversight. At the Nuremberg trials, Walter Schellenberg stated, "By the start of 1943, we grasped the reality of American output. Every skilled operative recognized the figure's validity, but voicing that reality invited death for spreading despair. In his post-war account, Hans Bernd Gisevius noted, "The real disaster wasn't ignorance of U.S. capabilities. We overflowed with data. The catastrophe lay in our superiors' denial, rooted in their supremacist beliefs." Those in German intelligence who attempted to convey the facts faced severe repercussions. Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, hanged on April 9, 1945, at Flossenburg Camp. Hans Oster, executed April 9, 1945, at Flossenburg Camp. Alexis von Roene, put to death in October 1944 for ties to the July 20 plot. Hans Bernd Gisevius fled to Switzerland and outlasted the conflict. The U.S. Strategic Bombing Survey validated the earlier German reports. From 1942 to 1945, Willow Run delivered 8,885 B-24s. Monthly highs hit 650 units. That rapid tempo held steady for extended periods. Per-plane expenses fell from $238,000 to $137,000. During his post-war questioning, Albert Speer was probed on Germany's dismissal of the intelligence regarding American output. Acknowledging Ford's ability to churn out a bomber hourly meant conceding our whole philosophy was flawed. That democracy proved resilient, not frail. That diverse populations fostered vigor, not decline. That females excelled in traditionally male roles. It implied we'd launched an unwinnable conflict. Who dared inform Hitler? Rosie Will-Monroe, the actual model for the iconic Rosie the Riveter, wielded a riveting tool on the B-24 assembly line. She and countless other women entered factory work only after Pearl Harbor. In a 1984 discussion, Monroe recalled, "We understood our efforts mattered greatly. Each fastener we secured advanced the war's conclusion. We'd pull extra shifts at times, resting in the lot in between. Our kin, brothers, spouses, partners, piloted those very aircraft." Ignoring the data on Willow Run wrought devastating outcomes. In aviation, focus lingered on bombers until late 1944. On supplies, funds squandered on exotic projects rather than solid protections. In tactics, campaigns designed against hundreds of enemy planes, not thousands. On diplomacy, negotiations stalled by underestimating inevitable loss. Examining seized records, German analysts uncovered Willow Run's true magnitude. Construction price, $200 million. Germany's full aviation sector funding from 1933-1945, $400 million in comparable terms. Plant area, 3.5 million square feet. Combined German plane plants, 8 million square feet. Willow Run's power usage, 2.5 million kilowatts per month. The Willow Run plant had constructed a sole facility that devoured resources exceeding those of entire German urban centers. By the conflict's conclusion, the complete extent came into view. Altogether, 18,188 B-24 bombers were manufactured. Of those, Willow Run assembled 885. In total, 12 Panisvitans were produced. From 1940 through 1945, the United States generated 330,617 aircraft. Over the same period, Germany turned out 94,700. America outpaced Germany by a factor of 3.2 in aircraft output, all while waging a war across two oceans. Experts in history regard the German oversight concerning U.S. manufacturing as among the gravest blunders in military annals. This wasn't due to shortcomings in gathering data. Spies from Germany compiled precise and thorough reports. Rather, it stemmed from a refusal to embrace them. Top officials dismissed findings that clashed with their ingrained perspectives. Dr. Gard Winberg determined that German analysts had correctly evaluated America's output potential as early as 1943. If that assessment had been heeded and acted on, Germany could have pursued an armistice 2 years sooner, potentially sparing millions from death. This narrative imparts deep insights. Cognitive distortions. Even reliable information gets dismissed when it challenges fundamental convictions. Ideological myopia. Partisan doctrines can eclipse undeniable numerical evidence. Institutional breakdowns. Systems that penalize harsh realities tend to favor soothing deceptions. Deadly overconfidence. Dismissing adversaries' strengths invites devastating setbacks. During the 1985 opening ceremony for the Yankee Air Museum at Willow Run, Rose Will-Monroe, once a famed Rosie the Riveter, encountered Hans Rudel, a former Luftwaffe pilot. Rudel inquired, "How were you able to construct so many in such record time?" Monroe replied, "Darling, we simply showed up daily and performed our duties. Nothing elaborate, just clock in, assemble the planes, clock out. Democracy isn't intricate. It boils down to ordinary folks giving their all." Rudel reflected, "They convinced us that democracy bred frailty, that your varied populace led to disarray. We swallowed falsehoods, and those deceptions claimed millions of lives." Amid Berlin's devastation in May 1945, U.S. intelligence personnel uncovered a concluding German dossier on Willow Run, composed on April 20, 1945, Adolf Hitler's final birthday. It verified Willow Run's output. We conveyed this fact 2 years prior. Our warnings went unheeded. Germany perished not from deficient data, but from the absence of discernment to accept reports defying our desired narrative. May coming eras grasp that facts remain unmoved by dogma. Numbers bow not to fables. Neglected verity turns to calamity. That document never reached its destination. Hitler had already retreated to his shelter. The so-called thousand-year empire had mere days remaining, and countless U.S. bombers, numerous from Willow Run, enforced the very case German spies had urged 2 years before. History's judgment stands firm. German espionage excelled, but their willingness to absorb it proved ruinous. Within that denial of harsh realities rests a caution for every society. Truth disregards personal convictions. Nations that spurn evidence for the sake of doctrine will inevitably fall victim to it. Willow Run forged more than aircraft. It demonstrated democracy's efficacy, diversity's power, and liberty's productivity. German operatives tallied everyone. Their superiors credited zero. That skepticism doomed the Third Reich as definitively as any explosive.